Good evening and welcome back to Be Rich. So we are here to discuss semiconductors. And why should I discuss semiconductors? Well, one of in world's largest companies, Jaguar Land Rover, and its mother company, the Tata Motors, announced their results last week. They say they claim they have 200,000 orders waiting for JLR. That is, if they could manufacture, they could sell at least 20,000 immediately and at least a lakh over a month, a lakh over a year. They have semiconductor shortage problems. All luxury cars seem to have a semiconductor problem. I remember during the pandemic, data cards became very costly. Then you had graphic cards going through the roof. The cost of a graphic card became more costly than a computer at one point. And the uniform chorus at all times was that there's a shortage of semiconductors. The problem, I think, is because the manufacturing of semiconductors is largely restricted to Taiwan, China, and portions of Malaysia, and maybe now some portions of Vietnam. So it is not a labor intensive product, but it's a very costly affair to set up a fab. And unless governments incentivize, it is very difficult to do it. And in chasing efficiencies of cost, most of these chip manufacturers have set up fabs way outside the continent and the Americas. They have sent it in Southeast Asia and Taiwan, as I told you, with the belief that nothing can go wrong. And the COVID proved that everything and anything can go wrong, because COVID struck America one time and Taiwan escaped the first wave without a problem. And in the second wave, Taiwan took a big hit while America didn't take a big hit. China continued to have lockdowns, rolling lockdowns. And I'm told as I speak, Wuhan is also locked down. So the supply chains between Southeast Asia, Asia, and the Americas and the Europe has completely broken down, leading to a supply chain crunch. So much so, a Japanese chip maker tied up with Tatas and is hopefully going to set up something to make chips in India. But that's a long way off. While all this is going on, there were two contradicting theories. Nvidia went ahead designing new chips and betting that the Chinese manufacturing supply chain would get proper again. Intel, under a new CEO, decided to concentrate on supply chain first. And Intel was the first company to talk about bringing back manufacturing into USA. Which model would succeed, which model would not succeed, we had to see. To discuss what is the problems with the semiconductor industry, I have with me my good friend and nephew Shashwat Swaminathan to discuss this with us. So Shashwat, what have you dug for us?
Right. So first, the chips and so the US has come up with an act. The Biden administration, basically, they've already passed this legislation which says it's called the Chips and Sciences Act, under which the act provides $52 billion in government aid in terms of subsidies and a tax credit of $24 billion to prioritize chip manufacturing in the country domestically. They're also trying to push for an authorization of more than $170 billion over 5 years to boost research in the US in the same field. So another data point is that GM has 90,000 unfinished vehicles due to chip shortages, and they're parked. You can see them bodies of these vehicles being parked, where there are 90,000 of them which haven't been open to the market because of the chip shortage. And the companies which are primarily to benefit from the Chips and Sciences Act is Intel, Texas Instruments, Micron Technologies, Samsung, and Global Foundries. These are the major players who are to benefit from the $52 billion subsidy from the government. So looking at all of this, first I want to ask you, what is the reason for the chip shortage around the world, and how are chip prices still persistent even after COVID has sort of rescinded to the background?
See, first and foremost, in the name of supply chain efficiencies, America has shipped all its manufacturing to Taiwan, to China, to Vietnam, to Malaysia.
Yeah.
Intel started with Malaysia even when Andy Grove was there. And so very little chip was being fabricated within the United States. And they relied on in fact, there was an article in the Economist, video article, basic connector was making its way from Vietnam to San Francisco and to come on to the store shelf. The journey takes 6 weeks. So while somebody is buying, there's plenty of connectors across the supply chain. These are called supply chain efficiencies. They thought they squeezed efficiencies all the time. And like purchasing power principle says, labor arbitrage is in cheaper countries like India, China, Vietnam. Actually, if you look at a basket of goods, which I'm living in India, so I know India, what costs 25 rupees will cost $1 there.
Right.
but the currency is now trading at nearly 80. So this arbitrage is what all the main companies wanted. India became the services factory. China, Vietnam, Taiwan, and Malaysia became the chip factory. So, and the Apple would design its product in US and get it made in China.
Right.
And Tim Cook, the current chief, was an expert in supply chain logistics. As much as Steve was a design fanatic, Tim Cook was a supply chain fanatic. See, he wrung out every cent
Yeah.
out of supply chain. When one guy does it, the rest of them will copy. So everybody copied. So the design and research was done in America, and the whole manufacturing was outsourced to these countries. Over a period of time, China got wind of it and started to develop its own chips, especially in telecom. And China used its 4G gear for spying on other countries, so much so that other countries said no to Chinese gears, even though they are cheaper
Because of security reasons.
because of security reasons. Huawei is a famous case.
Yeah.
And in some cases, the Chinese chip making technology was supposed to have leapfrogged the Americans. And this was the fear.
Right.
Now, the Americans have been worried about this. Huawei's boss's daughter was held in Canada for a long time till negotiations finally settled it. So, this problem was there before the pandemic. The pandemic accentuated it. Once this pandemic accentuated it, cars, computers, everything went out, and the world was used to instant delivery.
Yes.
And the delivery was not there, the cost went up, inflation went up. One of the initial drivers of inflation was second-hand cars.
Yeah.
Why second-hand cars spiked in cost is because first-hand cars were not available. Why were first-hand cars not available? Because chips were not there.
But was it? Couldn't it also be because second-hand cars are cheaper in a pandemic period?
No, the prices went up to record highs. And the reason is the first-hand cars were simply not there. In fact, even in India, cars were not available. Only low-end cars were available.
Okay.
The high-end cars, like you said, were not available. Jaguar Land Rover is not available even today. It is supposed to become all right in this quarter. That's what their finance guy said. I didn't get the number right, whether it was, I think he says they have an order book of 200,000. I don't know. Whether they are able to sort out this problem or not is something we have to see.
Okay.
The new Intel CEO saw this coming and he immediately said, we want to get the supply chain right.
Yeah.
I think basically the supply chain got stretched too much and the Chinese got too smart on this and the Americans were under the eighth ball. So the original fab manufacturers were Japanese. They were making soft-core memories. Intel started life as a soft-core memory and they couldn't compete with the Japanese in manufacturing.
Okay.
And so they decided to go into microprocessors. And they didn't want to get caught on microprocessors, on costs. And that's why they sent their fabs abroad.
Okay.
And the new guy said, let's bring the fab back to America. And to make it cost effective is why this subsidy and tax breaks have been given. And to make sure that America remains in the forefront of chip technology is why this science fund is being given.
Okay.
This is a defensive move by the Americans.
Defensive move. Okay. So next, a follow-up question: is the lack of chips a temporary supply-demand problem, or is it a structural issue?
I think it's a structural issue.
So it will take quite a few years to fix.
Yes, because I'm sure if it was only a temporary problem, by now they would have sorted it out. I think they underestimated demand and also they overestimated China's capacity.
Right.
Nobody thought Xi Jinping will come and do what he did to industry in China.
Right.
So there is a question of whether China is going to be a reliable partner. In fact, my fear is that the world is now global and flight of capital and services is happening across borders. Whether the world will become a duopoly, that is, there will be two orders. One is an American order and one is a Chinese order.
So bit like USA and USSR.
Yeah. And so in those days there was no capital flow between Soviet Union and the West.
Yeah.
And no capital flow from West to India and India to West. All that changed in 91.
Yeah.
Whether the world will get locked into such a situation is something I worry about. There is quite a strong possibility that China would like to flex its muscle because China's population has begun to shrink, right? China is going to have a rapid aging population. So this is China's movement. China allows it to
Pass.
pass, they are not going to get this chance. America has maintained its population by allowing immigration. Nobody wants to go and settle down in China.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to settle down in the United
America.
States.
Yeah.
So that is the basic difference between the two.
Right. Now I want to move on to the Alibaba deal. So Alibaba wants to pursue a dual primary listing in Hong Kong along with NYSE. So the primary reason behind that is because they fear, because the US has basically said, if you don't give us an audit report, we'll take you off Wall Street. So they're saying that Alibaba is doing this as a way to protect itself and cover its bases.
I rather think Alibaba is doing this to please the Chinese masters.
Okay.
Alibaba is a very big chain. China is a huge market for Alibaba and Alipay. When the Chinese started to crank on and financial,
Yeah.
and after the IPO was announced, they cracked down on Jack Ma. Jack Ma disappeared for so many days. Even now, Jack Ma is not available. And I made this point that there are going to be two world orders. Hong Kong is completely under the Chinese thumb.
Yeah.
A Chinese Communist Party supporter has become the ruler of Hong Kong. And Hong Kong pro-democracy has been
Wiped out.
and they have been silenced. So Hong Kong is a Chinese dominant. Also there was an announcement. Alibaba has scaled back its plan to become global and fight Amazon. So what does it mean? That Alibaba has been told you behave,
Yeah.
you do in China, listen to the Communist Party, we'll take care of you.
Right. There's also a Chinese subsidy for domestically listed companies, and
Yeah, it will be.
there's also a Chinese subsidy for domestically listed companies. Over the past 3 years, they've shelled out 200 billion yuan each year, which comes up to $29.6 billion. So, what do you think?
I
of
don't
that?
think Alibaba is in a position to needs to ask for money. I think it's a defensive move. They want to remain in China. They have sold their interest in Paytm for a pittance. They are retreating into China, and China is going more and more into an iron curtain, and it's going to have its own influence states.
Right.
I am very worried that China will try something with Taiwan.
And I think tensions are building up.
Exactly.
Okay. So, that's all I have for you today.
Thank you for watching Be Rich. If you like this content, kindly subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notification. If you do not turn on the bell notification, you will not be notified every time we put out a video. Once again, I thank you for your support for Be Rich. It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.